What if the unspoken years of Jesus, that profound silence between the boy in the temple and the man at the Jordan, were not a gap in the story, but a hidden chapter? What if that chapter was not lost to history, but safeguarded in the mountain sanctuaries of Africa, recorded in a script more ancient than Rome's, and obscured not by the passage of time, but by the boundaries of a later, Western worldview? This is more than an historical inquiry. It is the recovery of a sacred echo, held within the care of one of the planet's most ancient Christian lineages, a faith unbroken by colonial hands, and sustained through millennia of unwavering belief. Ethiopia safeguards a portal to a dimension of Christ's life the modern world has largely forgotten. Before the Messiah of the Gospels, before the water of baptism and the light of the Transfiguration, there was a youth possessing a divinity, a potency, and a wisdom that defied mortal limits. And his chronicle endures in the highlands of Ethiopia. The accepted Gospels present a startling narrative silence in the life of Jesus from roughly age 12 to 30. Our last vision of a young Jesus is in Luke's account, where he confounds the scholars in Jerusalem's temple with his profound understanding. Then, the record falls mute for approximately 18 years. Scripture offers no insight into his adolescence, his early manhood, or the private journey that prepared him for his public destiny. This resonant silence has, for centuries, fueled speculation and inspired a body of supplemental texts seeking to illuminate the shadows. While the canonical books remain quiet, numerous apocryphal and historical writings, often marginalized by institutional orthodoxy, endeavor to reconstruct this elusive period. Among the most compelling of these sources is the Ethiopian biblical canon, regarded by many academics as the most ancient and complete scriptural collection in existence. This version of the Bible, still in active liturgical use by the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, contains narrative threads, theological depth, and accounts of miracles pertaining to those unrecorded years. Critically, unlike most Christian traditions that were often mediated through the lens of colonial or imperial power, Ethiopia's embrace of Christianity predates and exists independently of these later structures, granting its scriptural tradition a unique and potentially more primal authenticity. Ethiopia occupies a singular space in sacred history, not only due to its spiritual legacy, but because of its extraordinary historical sovereignty. As an African nation that successfully resisted foreign colonization, it preserved its ancient manuscripts, liturgical practices, and holy artifacts without the filter, alteration, or suppression imposed by European empires. The Ethiopian Bible, composed in the antique Gizi language, comprises 88 books, significantly more than the 66 found in the common Protestant Bible. These additional volumes include apocryphal works, expanded canonical narratives, and detailed devotional texts absent from Western Christian teaching. This is not a faith adopted through external mission, but an indigenous, organic identity dating to at least the 4th century AD, and likely earlier. This unbroken continuity, protected from external doctrinal interference, has preserved the Ethiopian Orthodox Church as arguably the most pristine and ancient Christian institution on earth. Ethiopia's textual and oral traditions have remained in a remarkable state of preservation for over 16 centuries, offering an unparalleled window into the perceptions and beliefs of some of the earliest Christian communities, particularly concerning the so-called lost years of Jesus, often wrapped in an aura of legend. Ethiopia is also famed for its claim to house the ultimate biblical relic, the Ark of the Covenant. While contemporary archaeology has not verified its presence, Ethiopian tradition steadfastly maintains that it resides within the chapel of the tablet at the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion in Aksum. This belief is rooted in the Kabrin Nagast, Ethiopia's national epic, which weaves a direct genealogical and spiritual link between the Solomonic line and the Ethiopian monarchy. According to this sacred text, the ark was brought to Ethiopia by Menelik I, the son of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. While that narrative is a saga unto itself, it underscores the profound and intimate connection Ethiopia claims with the bedrock stories of the Hebrew Bible. This deep-seated link lends immense internal authority and credibility to its expanded scriptural canon. Regarding the hidden years of Jesus, the Ethiopian account is not a peripheral legend, but a central pillar of its national religious consciousness. The assertion that Christ's youth is documented in this ancient canon is not fringe theory. It is the outcome of an uninterrupted chain of custody over sacred knowledge, maintained in isolated monasteries and through disciplined oral transmission for generations. The Ethiopic canon retains texts that Western Christianity either discarded, suppressed, or classified as non-canonical. These include the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees, and various infancy gospels that depict Christ's early life. The Book of Enoch, for instance, was highly influential among early Christian writers, but was eventually excluded from the Western biblical canon by later ecclesiastical authorities. In Ethiopia, it never lost its sacred status, and it provides critical context for understanding the cosmological and supernatural framework within which early Ethiopian Christians understood Jesus' lineage and pre-ministerial power. There is a fundamental difference in origin between the Ethiopian canon and, for example, the King James Bible. The latter was the product of a 17th century political and scholarly committee, translating and curating texts according to specific theological and royal directives. The Ethiopian canon, by contrast, evolved organically over a much longer period, absorbing and sanctifying texts and oral traditions that circulated in the earliest centuries of the Christian era. This distinction reveals that many stories now considered apocryphal in the West were, in the Ethiopian context, preserved as vital and inspired scripture. A common misconception is that Christianity arrived in Africa with European missionaries. Ethiopia stands as a living rebuttal to this idea. Historical evidence confirms that Christianity became the state religion of the Aksumite Empire in the 4th century AD, decades before the Edict of Thessalonica made it the official religion of the Roman Empire. This timeline is corroborated by sources like the 6th century Greek traveler Cosmas Indicopleustes, who documented a vibrant, theologically sophisticated Christian kingdom in Aksum, complete with churches, monasteries, and a tradition of offering refuge to persecuted Christians from abroad. This positions Ethiopia not as a passive recipient of a foreign faith, but as an original and autonomous fountainhead of Christian tradition. Ethiopian Christians were not latecomers. They were among the faith's earliest architects and guardians. The preservation of texts describing a youthful Jesus performing healings, displaying supernatural wisdom, and even wielding power over life and death reflects this deep-rooted, alternative theological tradition. It compellingly suggests that the dominant Western narrative of Jesus' life is incomplete, having intentionally or accidentally omitted this formative dimension of the Christ story. In 2010, a significant discovery added material weight to Ethiopia's claims. Scholars recovered an illustrated Guizi gospel from a remote, inaccessible mountain monastery, a place untouched by modern currents. This manuscript, brimming with vivid iconography and containing passages unknown in Western Bibles, provided tangible proof of an independent and ancient interpretative tradition. It depicts a Christ consciously engaged in his messianic identity from a very young age, a concept often postponed until his baptism in standard narratives. The artwork serves as a key to understanding how Ethiopian believers visualized Christ not merely as a teacher who became divine, but as an eternal being whose divine nature was manifest from the beginning. The so-called infancy gospels, preserved in Ethiopia, contain some of the most fascinating narratives. One well-known story tells of the child Jesus fashioning sparrows from clay beside a stream, then clapping his hands to grant them life and flight. While versions of this story exist in other apocryphal works like the Infancy Gospel of Thomas, its canonical status within Ethiopian Christianity is telling. Here, it was not treated as charming folklore, but as a genuine testament to the inherent creative power of the incarnate Word, evident even in childhood. Stories of him healing injured playmates, restoring life, and displaying preternatural knowledge fill the void left by the canonical texts. They paint a portrait of a boy grappling with the magnitude of his own identity, learning to channel his divine power within a human context, sometimes with wonder, sometimes with a severity that reflects the overwhelming burden of his nature. These accounts, though absent from Sunday school lessons in the West, represent a rich tapestry of early Christian piety and imagination. They complete the icon of Christ, presenting him as fully human, experiencing growth and learning, while simultaneously fully divine, wielding the authority of heaven. The Ethiopian tradition, in essence, sanctifies the entirety of Jesus' human journey. Not just his public ministry, it argues that the 30 years of preparation were as much a part of the divine plan and as infused with sacred purpose as the 3 years of teaching that followed. In conclusion, the silent years of Jesus remain one of history's great mysteries. Yet, through the enduring scriptures and living tradition of Ethiopia, we are offered a continuous, unvarnished thread of memory that venerates the whole life of Christ. His hidden growth, his latent wisdom, his quiet ministry before the public one began. It challenges us to expand our theological imagination beyond the familiar boundaries of the Western canon and to appreciate the profound ways in which faith and history have intertwined along divergent, yet equally sacred, paths. Thank you for exploring the mystery of the missing years. To delve deeper into Ethiopia's unparalleled biblical heritage and its foundational role in Christian history, consider subscribing and continuing this journey of discovery.